Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Screen Smash. I'm your host, Dan Morris. Joining me this evening, I have Tyler Graham,
Hello.
Louis Reza,
Ah!
and joining us for the first time, dragged straight from the Rest of Us podcast, we have Nick McKay. Hello, Nick.
Hey, that's me. Hi. Hello.
Wonderful to have you here, Nick. Thank you for stepping away from your other project, which is unfortunately kind of over for the time being. But I'm glad you decided to join us over here on the Screen Smash land, and you can tell us about your gaming history and background. So why don't you give us a little bit about yourself, Nick?
Yeah, cool. Thanks so much for having me. It's so cool to be here on the podcast. I don't want to say like a huge gamer, but I do like my video games.
You do like
and I
some
love talking about
Last
them
of
as
Us,
well.
right?
I do. Anything, legitimately anything that Naughty Dog's ever released, I'm a huge fan of. And I'm talking like way back, Crash Bandicoot days, Jack and Daxter. I'm just anything they release, and that's Uncharted, The Last of Us is just. I mean, those are my absolute favorite games. But I'm into like a whole range of other things, mainly story-based games. Really cool thing is like just over a month ago, finally got my hands on a PS5. So that's kind of spiced things up lately. I've been playing a ton of stuff, just sort of getting my money's worth because it's a lot of monies to get a PS5. I think we can all agree on that pretty much.
That's why I don't have
But
one.
yeah, just you'll get there, man. But yeah, just excited to be on here and chat about some games.
Sweet. That's what we like to do here. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, because like I never get tired of talking about games at all times. And
Exactly.
it's a passion. And before we get into our main topics tonight, I have a little beef to take with the internet. So here we go. This is the start of the first ever Dan's tangent.
Dan's
Props
tangent.
to Tyler for that idea. We're going to call this a tangent. So I, over the weekend, finished Resident Evil 4 Remake, and I fucking loved it. There's going to be more on that to come. I'm not here to talk about that right now, though, because the very next day I opened up Twitter and saw this awful pouring of garbage of people hating on the voice actress Lily Gao, who plays Ada Wong in the remake. And I found she also was Ada in the movie that came out, The Return to Raccoon City. And I couldn't believe my eyes, ears, brain, anything that saw what was happening here, where people were giving her so much shit. And there was a quote from someone on, I believe, Reddit that said, they directed this at Lily Gao and said they wasted their money on Resident Evil 4 Remake because of her performance, which is fucking absurd. Okay? That game is phenomenal. Even if you hated her, how does that ruin the entire game for you? You are being a hyperbolic fuckface.
Dan's mad.
Yes, I am. It pisses me off. Because honestly, I thought she was great. She did the character a lot of justice. And I can't believe this kind of toxic nonsense that people allow themselves to do on the internet because they're just petty. So,
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of the flack that the Abby voice actor got
right.
with The Last of Us 2.
Dude.
Laura Bailey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like one of the
yeah,
Laura
legitimately best goddamn voice actors ever. Yeah, okay, she sucks. They didn't like the
Absolutely.
character.
Yeah, just because you don't like a character, even if you don't like the work they did, like it's ridiculous to personally harass them. Like,
Yeah.
And it's not even the first time. It wasn't even the first time
Yeah.
that she got flack for a role. She also played Nadine Ross in Uncharted 4.
Right, yeah.
Fair enough there. I mean, because Nadine Ross is a black character and Laura Bailey is a white actress.
You know, on that point,
So,
too, I want to bring it back.
There's some things there. But yeah, go ahead.
So bringing it back to Lily Gao, they actually fixed that mistake because in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it was a white actress playing Ada Wong. And they got a appropriate, Asian actress to portray Ada, and she did a good job. And now there's all this garbage of people shitting on her performance to the point where people were harassing her so badly on her Instagram account. She removed every message she had since 2020. And
yeah, she stripped back every post and then like limited the comments on them.
Yeah,
Like she had to go scorched earth to try and get these people off of her.
it's
crazy.
ridiculous. Like, I don't care what you think of the character in the game. I don't care what you think about the performance, but that's no reason to harass someone to this level in this degree in this circumstance.
Why were people shitting on her so much? Just like they thought it was bad, or
They thought she didn't do a good job. They were trying to say her performance was like phoned in and lazy and or misrepresented the character. And I thought it was a perfect representation. So I don't know. Maybe it's just people being stupid. Maybe it's people trying to say that they expected Ada Wong to be more like sexy and like feminine when she's much more cold and distant. And it's like, but that's her character though. That's what she's supposed to be.
I feel like when a game is like really good, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, there's like a very vocal minority that always want to home in on something, like point out something being wrong.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, in cases like this, some people get secondhand flack for it for literally no reason, just because that vocal minority is looking a needle on something. So
for literally doing their job.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's really bad. But
I always kind of think of it as like something just tells me, I know I'm probably gonna get shit on for this, but I just feel like it's like, you know, like the original actress is where it's at, and if they had anybody new, and especially, oh my god, they're talking to the woke mob, and they actually got an Asian, and she sucks anyway. You see, you fucking morons, you stupid cucks. Just like, how about if you don't like her, you just say that. Just leave it with, I don't like her. Everything else was great. Yeah, you could have got a better actress.
You could have just been like, I didn't care for Ada so much.
Yeah.
She's only in like 10 minutes of the entire fucking game.
Nobody is
really?
saying you have to like she's a bit part. Nobody is saying you have to like her. Nobody is saying you're idiots because I want to be very clear on this. We're not calling you shit stains because you don't like the character. We're calling you shit stains for harassing a human being for no other reason than I didn't like what you said. Come on, man.
Yeah.
You have to be smarter than that. You have to be so much bigger than just calling somebody something terrible because you didn't agree with what they did. How many actors in movies have you seen that like didn't really hit a chord with you, and you went online to harass them for hours upon hours or days and all that kind of stuff? Like, just shut up, man. You're not being reasonable. You're not going to be heard, especially if you're being that stupid about it. If you want the studios to listen, then do it correct. Then be like, you know what? I think that you could have gotten better. Maybe this actor or actress would have been better for that role. Have a solution. Don't just bitch. You don't get to bitch unless you think you have a solution. That's it. That's my.
But it's like, I mean, it's like the thing with Abby in The Last of Us. I mean, people were sending Laura Bailey death threats for something that a fictional character did in a fictional game. It's just like, it's so typical of the internet to just be so ridiculously stupid.
That she didn't do the writing for either.
Yeah. She didn't do the writing. She didn't make the stories. They went, read this aloud, and she went, okay. That's what they did. She didn't go, you know what? I see the script, I see what you're doing, but if you want me, you're gonna have to do this. And I know it's gonna piss off a lot of people, but I'm gonna be remembered forever in a healthy, positive way. That's not what she fucking did. And she just went, okay, cool, job. That way I get to eat tomorrow, you dicks. Anyway.
Yeah, to not linger on this much longer because we do have other things to get to tonight. I just want to close out with saying, longer. I'm going to close this out with saying, Lily Gao, if you happen to actually listen to this or hear this in any means, you did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait I hope we get a Separate Ways DLC starring you and tell everyone on the internet to kiss your fucking ass. So, moving on.
Lovely first tangent.
The first tangent.
Yes. Nailed it.
It got us going. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I'm heated. Anyways, moving on. Tonight we are gonna give a little something different because we have Nick here tonight. So we're gonna let him kind of explain to us and share with us his experience on doing the Last of Us podcast for CouchSoup, the rest of us. So if you guys haven't watched that, go check it out after you get done with this. These guys, Nick Lily and Erica did an awesome job doing week-to-week breakdowns of each of the episodes of The Last of Us and taking it from like their perspective as gamers and fans of the series and applying it to the show. And I wanted to let Nick give us a little chance of like your post feelings of the show as well as the podcast. That's what I want to know. I want to know more about like your experience doing the podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dan. It's nice to have an opportunity to talk about it after it's all done, because it was a crazy ride. I mean, I'd never done sort of a podcast, like a real podcast like this before, so it was a really unique experience. I remember going all the way back. I actually posted on our Discord to all the contributors saying like, "Hey, does anyone have anything planned for The Last of Us?" Because it's like, we've got connections to that. Does anyone have anything in mind? And then we got like a small writer's room together and we started talking about it. And then it got to this point where it was like, we're going to do a podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Because I'd never done anything like that before. And I didn't know exactly how everything was going to work. And the first episode was just like, kind of like a train smash because everything kind of went wrong, but we figured it out. And I think we got better as every episode went by. And I think for me, the experience of it was so cool because like I've got friends that I talk to about video games, but there's no one that I can really talk to that's as passionate about The Last of Us as I am. I still say that the first game is my favorite game I've ever played. It just resonated with me on a way sort of different level. Yeah, so I mean, for me, it was just nice to be able to weekly have a chat with people that were as passionate and, people that were kind of with me on the whole thing. And it was, a great experience as a whole. The TV show, on the other hand, was I didn't know what to make of it throughout the entire run. I was kind of like, it's a great TV show. It's really, really well made. But I mean, the changes they made from the game to the TV show, it was divisive to say the least. I don't know what did you guys think of the series?
I personally
don't all speak at once.
Listen. I personally will say that I didn't even watch the whole thing. I kind of going in didn't have a super big interest in it, which I know is like really weird in like the sphere we're in. But I didn't super care for it going in. When I heard they were making like the changes with like the spores and all that, I was like, the whole like tendrils or whatever. I was like, And then as the episode started going on a little bit and there was like not that many like zombies, I was like, well, like, the games have come out like 3 times, you know what I mean? Like I've seen this story before. I kind of wanted to watch it for like cool practical effects or like CGI zombies a little bit. There wasn't that much of it, so I was kind of just like, a little bit checked out. Me personally, anyway. That's just me.
That was a resounding feeling that we had. Like almost every episode was like, where are the infected? Because I mean, like one of the bigger points is like Joel and Ellie don't see, like them personally, they don't see any infected from episode 6 to episode 9. So like almost the second half of the season, they have absolutely no encounters with the infected. And this entire story is about Joel trying to get Ellie to the Fireflies to potentially cure an infection that they haven't seen for 4 episodes.
Yeah,
so it's definitely a huge thing is that it lacked infected. It lacked the action.
Yeah, I think you putting that in perspective like that too, like it almost seems like that takes away from like the impact of like the whole final decision then a little bit, right? Like, that is a bizarre, bizarre choice.
In the game, you fight infected so often, and then even right before the final decision made at the end of the game, there's a huge infected encounter before that. So it kind of like, I mean, it's something I said in the podcast, which I feel is like a nice sort of sentiment, is like Jaws, the movie, is super scary because you see the shark's fin. That imminent danger is always present. It's always there. So you don't have to have these, you don't have to have these big, action sequences or things. I said you could even just start a scene of like Joel and Ellie at a campfire just talking. You could start it by like, a close up on a clicker and Joel removing a shiv from the clicker's neck.
Just remind us.
And then they have like their scene just to remind us and show it. It's all can be all off camera, but just show us that it's there. You think about horror movies, you see the ghosts in the background for the first hour of the movie to like tell you that ghosts are there, and then you have the climax where they fight the ghosts. It's just that it didn't feel like there was anything at risk.
I agree with a lot of that. The way I put it is that my sister, I've been telling her since it came out, I know you don't care for video games. Watch your husband play it. This is one of the greatest stories I have ever been privileged to like see and experience. You have to see that. But you never fucking listen. But now Pedro Pascal, the internet daddy, is in it, and she's like, "Oh my god, I have to watch this." She watches like, "Louis, have you seen The Last of Us?" I'm like, "Bitch, you know what oh no!" Like, I let her have it.
You know what I've been through.
Like you don't understand because you're not making the choices, all right? The show, and I understand that the show has to take a lot of liberty. And here's the best way that I could put it. I really, really enjoyed it. I really like the way that they did it. I love the changes that they made. I actually like the changes more than I like the homage. I thought that was better because they made it so that it could be more of a told story than an experienced story because it needs to be experienced. But, and I had a private conversation with Erica specifically about this because I was like, I need to tell somebody. And it was David. I hate David in the show. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. I put him up there with fucking Sephiroth, with Darth Vader. Like he is tops, man. He's that good because every time I hear, I believe everything happens for a reason, everything goes on edge. I'm like, oh god, I'm traumatized for that bitch. And this just goes, by the way, not only is he questionable by even his own people who were like, I wouldn't die for this guy, he's kind of weird, which was the whole point in the game. And so like again, my sister was like, no, I felt really gross about him and I felt this and I felt that. And I'm like, I understand that, but what you're not understanding is that he was supposed to be your last hope. If Joel died at that point, it would have been fine if it was this guy that could take care of you because he risks his life to save her from when she falls where the clickers are and everything like that. He does everything in his power. And it's like, you know what? I trust this guy, and then strips that away from you. So not only do you want him to die, and then on top of that, pedophile, like it just gets worse and worse, and he breaks her nose, and like it just oh god, they took away all of humanity. So for me, what I was worried about, and I think they nailed it honestly at the end, I just think that it could have been better, is people were missing that little additive of I understand why Joel sold the world. Not just because it's my daddy. He did it because fuck this world. Who cares about this world? This world produces Davids. This world produces all this stuff, all these things. And we missed a lot of that because it can only be told. If they gave it a lot more story, if they gave David's story a lot more like the two brothers and stuff, like Sam and Henry, if they did that with everything, if this season was 3 seasons long, it would have been incredible. But they decided to speed past this one so they can get to the next one. I think so they can get it out of the way because, oh no. All right, I'm done.
But it's a great point, and some of the changes in the series kind of detracted from that as well. Because, I mean, episode 3 is one that I think a lot of people have talked about a lot, and that's Bill and Frank's episode, which is inarguably a filler episode. It's got nothing to do with the main story. It's a filler episode. It's one of the most beautiful hours of television we've seen in a long time, but it meant nothing for the plot. And the thing about that as well is that Bill in the game is seen as this really cold, reserved person, and is kind of a metaphor for who Joel would be without Ellie. So like you talk about Sam and Henry as well, and Sam loses Henry and he can't think of any reason to keep living and immediately kills himself. And that's a metaphor for kind of what Joel's life would be without Ellie. So all of these little reminders are like placed in the game, which we don't get in the show. These little changes like that just they irk me so much.
I ultimately I enjoyed the show for what it was. And then when I thought about rewatching it back like you guys did for your final episode, I was like, you know what? I already kind of feel like it's not going to come together watching it back to back. The first episode I thought was great. I loved everything about the first episode. I liked the little changes they did. I liked the surprises they did. And that to me is like one of the reasons why I like really well done video game remakes, because really well done video game remakes tell you the same story, but with slight tweaks and changes to make it fresh and new. And that first episode was great. And then it was like, okay, now it's just the same as the game. The Bill and blanking.
Frank.
Bill and Frank episode. Yeah. I loved that episode, but it lost me at the end when they just went out quietly. Like you said, that I full-heartedly was waiting for it to get to a point where Frank died, and then we jump to all of a sudden now Bill is this cranky old bastard because he lost Frank, and then we meet more of like what Bill was in the games. But they didn't do that. They just skimmed over it. Yeah, I think it would have worked a lot better.
I think it's an inoffensive change, but they should have done more episodes if they wanted to do something like that.
They should have.
100%.
They played it a little
series
too
should have been. Yeah, the series should have been 2 episodes at least longer.
Yeah, which is weird because didn't most Game of Thrones
least.
Episodes at least 10 episodes a season?
Yeah,
or at least 10.
10 to 12 usually, and that's why I was kind of like, wait, it's ending at 9. They haven't done anything.
And I want to close this up because we need to move on. But the last thing I wanted to get at was to echo your point about the lack of infected. The lack of infected. You're hitting the nail on the head when they're removing the danger, they're removing the reason for most of what's happening. But it also echoes one of my biggest struggles I had with the second game. The biggest thing that bothered me with the second game was the lack of infected, the lack of dealing with infected. You dealt with people a lot more in the second game than you did infected. And when you did deal with infected, they were like really short exchanges, and really they weren't that scary. And like that's what brings me to those games. I love the horror. I'm a big horror nut. And of course, you did have one of the greatest scenes ever with the Rat King, whatever. I forget. That's one of the best like horror moments in a video game. But it's the only bit in the second game. Anyways, I don't want to get too deep into that. It's just I echo that logic of the lack of infected strips too much away from the show, and it's also the reason I fell off of Walking Dead after the first couple of seasons, because it's like, this is just people fighting because they're assholes. Like, all right, whatever. Yeah. Anyways, so like closing thoughts from you, Nick, like your experience doing that podcast. What did you think?
It was great. You know, I mean, I'm very grateful to CouchSoup for the opportunity to do that. And it was fun to kind of share my side of things. You know, it's a lot of the times like you post comments on trailers, or you go into forums and say things, but it kind of gets lost in the flood of everyone else's comments. So it was nice to kind of have a platform and just talk about it for a while. And we were getting a lot of viewers and a lot of feedback. We got to interview Jeffrey Pierce and Nolan North as well, which was incredibly nerve-wracking for me because they're two actors I look up to very much so. I remember the Nolan North interview. I got the first question and I was literally shaking. I was like, oh my God. So that was really cool. So to have that opportunity was great. Yeah, Nolan who?
Nice.
But yeah, it was awesome. So hopefully more stuff like that coming up.
Excellent. Well, I mean, you're here now on the Screen Smash podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing this, and that show ideally will come back when the next season of the show comes out. So you still have more opportunities eventually. But if you guys want to catch the whole thing, go over to CouchSoup and check out the Rest of Us podcast, which is Nick, Lily, and Erica's breakdown episodes. They get real deep and they go real hard on the lore and comparison and everything. And they do. I think that you guys do good justice over there for what you were doing.
Adequate.
But anyways, back to video games, proper video games. The next thing that we're going to look at is playable cutscenes. Is that the right term? Playable cutscenes / moments in games with forced dialogue. There's no proper way to explain this, but it's basically in some games they have dialogue between characters that could be played out in a cutscene, but instead they have the player maintain control of their character while the dialogue plays out, and you're mostly just kind of standing there listening to a character just vomit dialogue at you. I wanted to talk about this because I personally hate it when games do this, and there's lots of games do this. The best version of this is when games allow you to have dialogue while you're playing the game. Uncharted is really good for that. Uncharted is one of the best. But you know what's not so great about it? The Last of Us. Last of Us is good at sometimes, but also bad at other times. But also Gears of War. Gears of War was really bad about that too. So anyways,
punch in the air somewhere right now.
So do you guys agree with me?
How dare you?
Or do you think that they're not that bad?
All right, listen, I'll kick it off because I think I have the centrist take on this one, in that I think they suck sometimes. I think like the most offensive example that comes to my mind is I remember back in Far Cry 3, at one point in that game, after you kill Voss, so like after the good part of the game's done.
Spoiler alerts.
That game's like what? Like a decade and a half old at this point. Come on.
Man.
Easily.
But, so basically, after the good part of the game is done, and you're like on the other island or whatever, you have to like tail a guy, and he's like just walking forward, giving dialogue, and you're supposed to be like sneaking, and it's just literally one of these playable cutscenes basically, and you just stand like 20 feet behind him, and you don't hide behind anything. But if you walk too far forward, you start like the whole playable cutscene over again. And that shit sucks. But I do think there are some of these that aren't that bad, where there's like really good graphics or something, or they let you like do tiny interactions with things. Like you can walk over to something while the person's talking and press E, and like I don't know, even if it's something small like a physics thing where you like slap some dice or like you hula hoop or some dumb shit, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, but like if you're just
let me do
around
anything during these moments.
Yes, exactly.
Anything.
If there's something like that, and like you can kind of engage with the environment, I don't think it's that bad. But if you have nothing to do but like follow these guys and just listen to them talk, that sucks. I think it's terrible.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, an example I can think of is like the earlier Assassin's Creed games, where you kind of you meet up with someone that you're supposed to meet up with, and instead of having a cutscene, sometimes you have a cutscene, and then it's like, okay, now it's time for us to walk. I remember Assassin's Creed 3 when you first get to I think New York, and you're walking with the old dude. I forget his name now, but you're walking with him, and you can't go ahead of him. And if you stop, then he stops and he waits for you before continuing the dialogue. But you have to walk. And then he's like, oh, look over there. There's a general store. And then, oh, look over there. There's something over there. Like, it's just so infuriating. It's like, let me play this game. It's just like, I hate them as well. But I think it can be done well. Uncharted is always a great example. But another game that's really good is I don't know if this is underrated, but I think it's one of the best games I've played in very long, is the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I thought it was phenomenal.
It's a really good game.
And that does it really well. So good. So good.
Yeah, and to that point,
does it really well.
They did a really good job of including dialogue in the moment-to-moment gameplay.
Yeah.
Yes. So while you walking around the areas, there's dialogue that helps build the characters and their relationships. And what I really like as well, something I appreciate, is when you go to like a specific area off the beaten path, and then there's extra dialogue.
I know exactly.
So
what
like
you're
you get your
talking about.
you get your character saying like, "Why are you veering off? What are you doing?" And then your character comes back and says like, "Oh, I just found something." Like I love that kind of stuff.
My favorite one from that game, I don't remember it word for word, but it was like you go off on a side path, and one of the other characters is like, "Where the hell's Peter going?" And then I think it's Rocket's like, "Oh, he likes to go look for treasure or something," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll be right back."
And I know the exact point. I know that exact point.
There's one scene where there's, I don't want to give spoilers away for this now, but there's the little blue girl that's trying to take him to like a detention center or something like that, and you can go off. She's basically like your captor kind of thing.
Yeah.
and you like go off to explore, and she says like, hey, let's not forget who's like, like leading who here. And then you come back and she's like, okay, no more running off like that. And you can do it like 7 other times. And there's a line for each time. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's
Just
definitely like
it adds like that little flavor to it. I love that game so much.
That's definitely like a good example of like how they do it really intuitively and really smartly to like, yeah, this is a video game. We know that. We're going to have fun with this.
Yeah, that they can't control everything, but they also don't want to like force you. Like you're walking away and it's like, hey, and then you just turn around and like, come back here. All right.
Yeah.
And then you turn back around and goes, hey, come back here. But I wanna, there's something, hey, no! I hate that shit too. I call it the reverse, what's it called again? That mission where, that reverse escort mission is what I call it. That you are being escorted and you can't do anything about it. Escort missions suck because it's like inevitably, like, let's use one of my favorite games of all time, and I fucking hate the escort mission, Metal Gear 2, where you have to wait for like this bitch. She got their legs taken out and she can't. Why did you have to include that part? Why is that? Why? You do everything in the universe so good, and then you have to do that, and it's a water level. Kojima, you just wanted to piss people off with that one. And then we have other games like I like that Uncharted does that you can veer off a little bit and you can go pick up treasure, or you can cause another cutscene with more dialogue, with more jokes or something. So it gives you that little dopamine rush of, I found something.
Especially when the banter is like written well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If it's written well, that's good. Like if you get a game, I think we all know what I'm thinking about, that has terrible dialogue. And then it's like, I'm not getting anything out of this. And it's just you trying to pretend that you had a funny. And I always get this kind of feeling that like I don't mind them for the most part, but there are some that it just goes way. It takes away from that frenetic energy that you're getting from like running from point A to point B. I just got to the Forbidden Forest in Breath of the Wild. And one of the little missions in there is you have to wait for one of those little tree guys to like walk through a forest and you can't be caught, and then you have to fight stuff off, and he goes tick, 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 tick. I'm like, oh, you're ruining this for me. I've been running everywhere, getting as fast as I can to places, jumping off of buildings I shouldn't be jumping off of, and now I have to go
sit there and wait for this little thing.
We're just waiting for the
just pacing killed.
And then he stops and goes, oh, I heard something. No, I didn't.
You literally just did this part too, didn't you?
I like maybe Tuesday. Like, I am literally red. I am literally red.
The last thing I think that I have to say about it is that I think the entire point of it is like, if you look at like the design philosophy kind of part of it, is that like video games are like obviously like an illusion of control, right? Like you want to feel like you're in control of like the fantasy or whatever game it is, you know what I mean? You want to feel like you're the badass soldier, like the badass like knight guy, whatever, right? And you have that illusion of control insofar as like the game lets you do your own shit. But then as soon as you get stuck trailing behind someone, that control's gone in an instant. And it's like, as soon as that snaps, you get really frustrated because you get pulled out of that experience and you're like, it's just fake. You know what I mean? And like, it's
being
fake.
Reminded. Okay.
Yeah, but you don't want that reminder.
So like when the screen goes black and you can see your reflection. Oh.
So the main point I was going to hit on with this, and the reason I brought it up too, is because it drives me nuts when it's a walk and talk scene. Whatever game it is, fill in the blank here. The moment where you're walking alongside a character and you're sitting there just holding up on the stick. You have nothing else you can do except for maybe turn the camera and look at what's happening. And maybe that's by design, that the game developers were like, well, we want you to be able to be in this world and experience it. It's like, yeah, but all I'm doing is holding up on the stick and it's really fucking slow and it's taking forever. And now I'm ready to move on with my life. I get that you want to give me this experience, but this isn't Half-Life. Be one or the other. Be Half-Life or be something else. If you're going to make it so that I have to experience this dialogue, just make it a cutscene. Why am I holding up on the stick? Just make it a cutscene. Please, for the love of God. Don't make me sit here holding up.
At least let us auto walk.
I will say this.
So we don't have to do that.
To some credit. Okay, so I've been playing the new Resident Evil, and they did this phenomenal thing where they took out all of the radio cutscenes of Leon talking to Hunnigan, and they made them moments that you experience while still playing the game instead of it stopping you and having to like look at this Metal Gear rip-off codec screen. So they made it where it's like you're talking to them almost on video chat through a phone, but you can still move around. You can still interact with the environment. You can still pick up stuff. You can still open doors. You don't go as fast, but you can still do shit. And then when the call ends, boom, you move on with your life. It's perfect. They did a really good job with that.
Yeah, okay. You know, that's pretty fair because my neurodivergent mind doesn't really allow me to like, if you're giving me really important dialogue, I don't want to be doing too much. I don't want to be in the middle of a fight when you're telling me the plot of the game. Like that, that is also bad. Like if
you're missing the important bits.
Yeah, yeah. And then like people are like, oh my God, did you catch the twist that it was his mother the whole time? I was like, when was that happen? Yeah. It's like, well, it was during the wrestling match. You mean that I was wrestling? I wasn't listening. Like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so like there is that like as we have been talking about, there's that fine line that it can go too far in either end of the spectrum. But like I always had a thought like, wouldn't it be cool? Like what are those called again? Like the where you have to push buttons at the time, like it's like quick time events. Thank you. if instead of like a QT happening at that moment because I'm watching the cool fight and then I forget that it's telling me, by the way, push triangle, and then I die. I'm like, no, because it's a really cool fight. Imagine if you could hit all the quick time events early. So like nothing is happening, but they're coming out and you have to hit them as fast as possible. And then you get all of them out of the way. And depending on the sequence of ones that you get, you see the fight scene play out that way. So like when Leon fights Krauser in the original RE4, you get all of those prompts early, and then you miss 3 out of the 5. On that third one, lights out. That's it. He's done. But then you get to sit there and actually enjoy watching the fight scene. You're still part of it. You're still playing it. You get some kind of engagement. So you still, I didn't get it that time. All right, got to go again. You get a little more excitement from it because at least you're still being party to it. You know what I mean? I just always thought that would be a cool idea. Nobody's ever done that. Give me $1 million. Thank you.
Somebody try that.
Somebody do that. I am hilarious and smart.
Louis' ideas are free.
Shit! No copyright.
That's always been a gripe of mine. Like you see the QTEs and like they're doing such cool shit on the screen, and you're like trying to pay attention to what they're doing, and then you got to press a button and like focus on something else. Like I've always hated that.
And especially when they're buttons that are random, because now I have to concentrate. I can't just like be hitting triangle, hit square, hit triangle, hit square, hit X, hit triangle. No, now I got to be like, which one? Oh, combination. Fuck. Yeah.
And then they throw like one of the shoulder buttons at you, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, that's a big one too. It's like if trying to give it important dialogue during like an action sequence, and you're like, "What did he say?" It's gone. I will never know.
Remember, you have to. What?
Like clang, clang, boom, boom. What did he say?
Yeah. If you don't do that, you're gonna die. And you go back, but it only loads to after he tells you what to do. Yeah,
of course.
No,
because it checkpoints right after the dialogue is given.
Every time.
We're gonna get to the main topic of the evening, and that is the end of E3. What's your trumpet, Louis?
Gotta play taps for him.
There you go. So, this is a little jig and dance. So, E3 has been officially canceled again. After canceling in 2020 due to COVID, they then planned like an all digital version for 2021. And then they were saying they were going to come back in 2022, which also got canceled, where they were saying the ESA and I forget, Reed Pop is the name of the company. They were saying they were going to focus on like take a 2-year dev cycle for E3 2023 and make like a new hybrid version of it. But alas, it's been canceled again due to lack of interest, I guess is the big reason. I guess, so we know this. PlayStation hasn't been doing E3 for a couple of years. Xbox dropped out, Nintendo dropped out, and then now officially Ubisoft has dropped out. Ubisoft.
And they're having their own event at the same time. I think it's Ubisoft that is having their own at the same time.
Yes.
So
what does this mean for us? Anything? Us personally as gamers, probably nothing. As people who go to these events, like, sure, I've always watched E3. I've always paid really close attention to it. I've always wanted to go to an E3. Unfortunately, I've never been to one. So yeah, I'm a little sad, but also there's a lot of other big game shows that I also would love to go to. And I hear E3 is a bit of a shit show. So I don't know. Are we missing out? Are we losing anything by not having E3? What do you guys think? Nick, how about you? What do you got?
I haven't really followed like the drama behind it, and I don't know all the reasoning and things like that. But I mean, for me, my sort of impression on it is like I remember E3 being like just hype as hell because of the announcements and everything that comes out. So you get like the E3 gameplay trailers of everything. So like I remember like seeing, it was years ago, seeing the first Spider-Man gameplay trailer. And then there's always the controversies and things that come with that. So that like there was Puddlegate that happened with that. Which was like a whole thing where we didn't get, like they basically show gameplay that was nowhere near what we got in the end product. The same happened with like Watch Dogs and Aliens, Colonial Marines. Like there's a lot of examples of that, but it was still so hyped to be able to see these games and to see trailers and new announcements and things like that. And I kind of think, oh, we're not going to get that anymore. But then a lot of like big publishers and like Sony and Microsoft and everyone, they're doing their own things now. So, we're still going to get all that stuff. It might just be different timelines, but it's just, I don't know, like the vibe of like saying, hey, E3 is this weekend. Like, I feel like it's kind of, it kind of sucks, but it's also like not really that big a deal. Because I mean, that's another thing is like a lot of these publishers and like a lot of influencers and content creators have got so many other ways to market themselves and to create content. So it feels largely unnecessary now. And nowadays, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but a big sort of people gathering thing, it doesn't feel that necessary for a medium that's largely remote and digital anyways.
No, you're definitely right. I think that E3's biggest problem, I don't even think it's like the idea that we don't need an event that like gathers people, so to speak, because I think people still like that to a degree. I think people still like coming together at these shows and like meeting each other and making connections, and developers and games journalists, and like there's people that make connections here, and I think that it's important to have in-person events for that reason. But I think that the big issue with E3 specifically is that they just didn't adapt to the times very well. And like these other shows have, some element of like better streams, more interesting people, personalities, you know what I mean? Like you said, like personalities cover things now. And so you've got these big publishers that are covering their own things, or you've got like personalities that are collaborating with people to cover things. And E3 just like never really got on board with that. And I mean, now after like a run of like it's 4 years now because of 2023 that there hasn't been an E3 then, right?
2019 was the last one.
Yeah. So 4 years, I mean, you'd have to assume it's dead, but I don't think too many people are going to mourn it. I think people will lovingly remember the earlier days of E3, but I think where it got left off, especially with I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was the last E3, the ESA accidentally like had a massive security breach, and like a thousands of like games journalists and like personalities that like cover games and like all that stuff had like their personal information doxed by them. So they kind of like lost favor as it was, and they were behind on the times, and I think that's it for them. Frankly, I think E3 is dead for good.
I
do think so too.
I could try to say it like this, that I loved my Game Informer that I would get, because I would go to GameStop, I would sell my games, I would get the stuff, I would get my Game Informer, it would tell me when games were coming out, it would give reviews for games that I was interested in, and I read it all the time. And when magazines were already going out of style, I was like, oh, not my Game Informer, not realizing I hadn't read an issue in like maybe 7 years, because it's just that nostalgia of it was there and it's what I went to before. But now we've gotten to a point that we don't need that. That's not the only event. That's not the only thing. There's, you know, all different kinds of stuff. Like even Comic-Cons, which are meant to be comic book conventions, now incorporate films about comic books, video games about those things. Like it gets everything. And it's exactly like you said, Tyler. They just refused to to adapt to that, to adapt to a more inclusive rather than a Nichian kind of an audience. And yeah, there's some people that still want it. There's some people that still want to go to that still look forward to it. The biggest disappointment in my life is knowing that I will have possibly never been to an E3. That was my childhood. That was the best of the best. Comic-Con didn't mean as much to me as E3. And to know that potentially, unless they change next year, I will never have gone to one of those. That sucks. But it's also kind of like Woodstock. After the last one, I don't think I needed to go. Yeah, it would have been cool, but like, you know.
And look, Louis, if it's any consolation, like with all the E3 like events that are still around, I'm sure one will like fill the vacuum as like a go-to, maybe not the go-to, you know what I mean? Because there's so many different things with like Ubisoft doing their own thing and like indie games kind of getting their own things. And like, you know, there's Steam Next Fest sometimes. Shout out to like Realms Deep, which is just like all boomer shooters and stuff. But there'll definitely be something that'll like fill that vacuum a little bit. And that could become like the E3 you go to, you know what I mean? Like that, keep the dream alive, Louis.
No. That's what I'm saying is that like, it sucks that I will have to say I have never gone to one, but at the same time, what am I getting in its place? Yeah. I get to go to this. The problem is also, if you think about it in this, I have to go to this to get all of the information I would have gotten at one con. And that kind of sucks, but it's also if Disney Plus, HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu, and ESPN were all $3 each, that wouldn't be too bad. But because of the fact that they're all $15 a month, that sucks. And that's kind of what's happening with these conventions, is that if I had to spend $500 to get to E3, I would have spent $500 one time. But now I need to spend $200 at this many to get the same amount. That could also potentially really, really suck. It doesn't have to be that way. I hope that somebody somewhere does something for us regular, you know, folk that don't make thousands of dollars a minute.
There is an alternative to E3. And I was going to say, first of all, I echo you, Louis, that I grew up like E3 was my Comic-Con. You know, I've always been like, I have to know what's being talked about at E3. I need to stay up to date. When they started live streaming, I was there. They used to sell it on DVD at GameStop back in the day. I would buy the DVD and watch it. You know, I'd watch every fucking minute of like, you know, like hours long conferences. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but oh yeah, cool.
Give it to me.
And then I'm a little sad, you know, because now here we are kind of like getting our way into this medium and this industry. And if E3 doesn't ever come back, that's one of the big ones that it's like, I'll never get that checkbox. But there is one that I definitely hope I can get to. And I hope that one doesn't go away. And that's Gamescom, technically. That's the big giant game trade show that happens in Germany every year, which is actually by some standards bigger than E3. And it's less of a like giant corporate, like here's all the big tech speak and corporate speak and all the other stuff that they typically do at E3. It's more of here's the games, demos, game announcements, gameplay. It's much more focused on the games themselves. So if I ever get to go to Gamescom, I'll be pretty happy. But yeah, I would love to see E3 maybe come back in some form or fashion, if not something new entirely, something if it was more focused like Gamescom. That would be pretty sweet. But again, it's that like, I know E3 is expensive, and not just for the people, but for the people who go to present there. Like the booths that the companies have to buy to be at E3 is insane expensive. So of course, you know, companies are gonna be like, we could just put on our own like virtual presentation for like a third of the cost, if not more, like, or less. So
yeah, it doesn't cost much to run a stream.
No. The only different, and then
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Sorry, I was going to say, like, the bigger thing was you go to E3 to play, like, demos. You get that E3 demo, and you can only play it there. But now you've got digital distribution.
Like Steam Next Fest.
Yeah, and you get demos that day, or you get the E3 demo that day. Like, they'll do an announcement, like, you can play the demo right now. And it's like, oh, sweet. They did the... What was it just recently where they... I want to say it was Wolong. They did an announcement about Wolong, and then they were like, you can play the demo. It's available right now. And I run it to my Xbox and downloaded it. Like, yes, you know. Like, I love that shit. But, yeah. Sorry, you were going to say something, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say just in terms of the cost, I mean, I was doing a little bit of research today about this topic just to try and stay up to date. And one thing, I think it was someone from Polygon or one of those, is they said, the other thing about E3 is that it's a massive thing, and it costs a lot for publishers, developers, but also for games journalists that have to, you know, send a couple of staff to get there. Sometimes they sending them from the East Coast or potentially from somewhere overseas. And I mean, that's not exactly cheap either. So it's this massive thing, and you think, is it really worth all the money that's being put into it?
Yeah, and I know I've read plenty of times about how journalists go to these events and they're at the event all day, then they're writing as soon as they see something, and then they're going to another thing and then writing about it, then going to another thing and then writing about it, or they like go to the event all day and then they go back to their hotel room and they're writing all night. And it's like, that sounds exhausting.
I feel like people have the conception that it's just like all fun for them. Yeah. But like you have to be spotting things to write about because it's your job, and then you have to be writing about them. And so like really,
and if you miss it and you were right there,
exactly, then you're on the hook by your organization because they're missing out on stuff. And it's your fault.
I was playing a game that I've been waiting for since I was 2 years old. Like, well, you missed the thing that was happening to the left. What were you doing? I was looking to the right.
Why didn't you see Hideo Kojima pop out from behind the curtain, go hi, and then walk away?
How'd you miss that? Game. I was in a booth. They closed me off. I didn't. So you gotta, you know, that's very true too. Like, it's not as simple as we're losing the only games convention, obviously, but it is like you know, a pinpoint. It's a historical thing. You know, we're not reading the newspaper anymore, so why print it? But at the same time, we're not making newspapers anymore. There's that nostalgia that we who have lived through it will feel more than the people that never had to.
Right.
And so it's easy for them to move on from it. And, you know, I'm trying to be open-minded about it and trying to remind myself that I don't need to be sad because, like you guys said, I know that there's going to be other stuff. I'm very aware of that. And some of that stuff is going to be far more affordable, is going to talk about way more people, is going to give the people that never got the chance a bigger chance and a better place to shine. And it's so much more beautiful to know that that's what's going to be coming from a thing that was a conglomerate in itself. It was literally monopolizing the entirety of all video game stuff. And that's why it costs $10,000 to have a booth with us, because where else are you going to go? Aw, you can't afford to do it on your own platform. And so there's good and bad that comes with it, you know?
I just want to get one last thing in there, because Louis, I gotta say, you touched on actually a super important point that I feel like we kind of missed out on earlier, which is like, yeah, it really is like in part like a democratization of like the voices of like indie devs and everything. Like there's really even like tons of events that are really big just for indie devs now that get, indie devs a platform that they never would have had before. I think that's fantastic. And like, if that's what comes from E3's ashes, then so be it. Like, I think that's great, honestly.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
The industry's better for it. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So E3's dead.
But...
Good. It's a good thing.
Should we have a vote and see like who says yes it's dead, who says no maybe it'll make a comeback?
So you want to do like
Dead.
Who thinks it's dead?
I mean,
all right.
I want to be the only one out.
4 for dead. It's clocked. It's done.
I know. Who thinks it's still in? A part of me. I think if they make a massive change and then next year they're like, by the way, more inclusion, more this, more that, and then it's like, okay, cool. Well, good luck.
I think it's possible.
I'll take it's free.
Yeah.
Possible, but
it's
not,
possible. Like
not
they'd have to
likely.
make some pretty massive changes and come at it with a whole new mindset to really garner new people, as well as rebuild some trust with others, who've struggled with it.
If they bring it back, E3 would not be on life support. It would be like Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas, being like a cryogenic chamber, wilting away.
Kill me.
Just put it out of its misery already. God.
With the shotgun.
Kill me!
Oh man.
It's so bad. We got dark again. Yay.
So, we'll close it on this. We think E3's dead, but also we're not opposed to it not being dead. Like somehow resurrected in some fashion. They just got to do it right, though. But anyways, we've got like Summer Game Fest is coming. We've got all the different individual events coming from everyone, Nintendo, Sony, Xbox. Everyone's going to have their own events. And the little people like us get to be like sitting there watching along. And then when they give us those, the demo is available right now. We're like, woohoo, just run off and download that E3 demo and play it right then and there instead of having to spend thousands of dollars to fly to LA or Germany or wherever. So, yeah. It's a good thing, right?
Okay, that's perfect. To be like, yeah, huh? It is, but it's also not, but it also is, but isn't it? And I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know how it's supposed to feel.
We, as those like on the outside who've never actually gone to or covered E3, it's harder for us to really say for sure, but this is our perspective. But yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to give Nick a massive shout out here. Thank you for joining us tonight, Nick. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Can't wait to come back sometime.
Heck yeah, it's been good. And I know I feel your
Definitely.
passion on the wanting to be able to just shoot the shit about video games with people. And that's what we do
Shoot
here.
the shit.
Shoot the shit. Shoot the
We
shit.
are the shit that shoots.
We are the shit shooters.
That's right.
Shit shots.
Alrighty.
Shit shots.
Thank
Shut
you
me up.
again, Nick. Everyone go check out the Rest of Us podcast over on CouchSoup.com. See all the amazing work they've been doing over there. Keep your eyes peeled for more Nick McKay in the future. And then thank you, Tyler and Louie, for this wonderful conversation.
And thank you for hosting us, Dan.